I'm very happy to invite Mr. Alok Verma to this conversation with the Malabar Journal. Alok Verma is a person with more than 25 years of experience in Indian Railways, and he is also one of the major person behind the railways program to improve the speed and other technological upgradation of the Indian railway system. He has been involved in advocating for improving the speed, increasing the speed of the Indian railways, Indian trains from 160 to 200 kilometers for more than nearly 2 decades. And he is also a person who is having some very, very valuable criticism against the ongoing Silverline project in Kerala. And we are very happy that Mr. Verma has agreed to talk to us on some of the major issues connected with the Silverline project. And he is not only having some critical voice against the Silverline project, he is also having a very viable alternative models for improving the railway system and increasing the speed of the trains running in Kerala. So I welcome Mr. Verma to the Malabar Journal, and I'm very pleased that he has agreed to talk to us. Welcome, Mr. Verma.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to your new journal, the Malabar Journal. Thank you.
We will start our discussions with two projects which you have mentioned recently in your writings in the last 2-3 days. You are saying that instead of going for this Silverline project, which you have very rightly described as a kind of an ecological disaster, a technological disaster, and an economic disaster, instead of going for that, you are saying there are two very viable proposals for improving the efficiency and the running speed of the trains in Kerala. And one of your first proposal is that you are saying that using the existing railway network, we could improve the running speed to 120 to 130 kilometers per hour, or we can make it 140 to 150 kilometers per hour. And according to your calculation, we needed to have a upgradation and a renovation of 20% of the existing lines, and that will cost something like 15,000 crore approximately. So what is the idea behind this whole proposal? What is the?
Yeah, let me begin with some very basic fact about the terrain and topography of Kerala.
Yes.
You see, Kerala has a very unique terrain. You have, patches of high ground, then you have lowlands, backwaters, and then you have slightly small hills also. Hilly terrain is also there. So in Kerala, the habitable land is less because a lot of it is backwaters and paddy fields and lowlands.
Yes.
So the land is at a premium. People don't want to be deprived of their land. They put more value on their land than maybe in other states of the country. The other thing is, that railways are not like highways. Highways can have sharp curves and they can have steep gradients, but railway line has to maintain a sort of a more or less straight alignment and with few curves only. So it means a lot of, when you have to plan a railway line, the alignment, it may require a lot of dismantling of existing structures, the houses and the other buildings, So in Kerala, unlike other states, making a new line would be very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Okay, because it requires land, dislocation of people. So we have to first exhaust the possibilities of the present line.
Yes.
Okay. So let me give you one example, say Delhi to Howrah line, okay, the Rajdhani route, one of the busiest line of India. You see, it's more than 150 years old. And that line is still is one of the busiest lines of the country, and it is meeting most of the requirements. So this has been possible due to constant upgradations. You began with the steam locomotives and track which was fit for only about 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. Then step by step, we have introduced new kind of locomotives, improved coaches, and then we have improved the track. Okay, from 60 to 90 kmph to today, it is 120 to 140 kmph. So railway track has a lot of flexibility. The system has a lot of flexibility, and the world over, the experience is that you can upgrade the existing lines to anywhere between 160 to 200 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
So what will be required in Kerala would be, because because of the terrain, the existing line is having a lot of sharp curves. Okay. And there are stretches, which are having weak soil, weak ground, So we will have to ease the curves, flatten the curves, and we will have to replace the bad stretches, with new patches of new line. That is called realignment, So somewhere you will have to remove, say, maybe 10 kilometers, somewhere maybe just 1 kilometer. So like this, you'll have to do realignments to remove the weak stretches, right?
Okay.
So, and then, another important thing is the tilting train. Tilting train technology has been there in the world for last 50 years. And it has revolutionized the railway system in Europe and Japan and in many countries, So tilting trains have this, characteristic, that when they are on sharp curves, they tilt, thereby reducing the discomfort of the passengers. So they do not have to slow down on sharp curves. They can go at 30% higher speed, Suppose a curve is for only 100 kmph, then using tilting trains, the train can run at 120 to 130 kmph per hour.
Okay.
So not just two, I will say there are three options. Okay.
Yes.
The first option is that carry out minimum improvements and introduce tilting trains.
Okay.
Right. This will cost, my rough estimate is about 7,500 crores.
Okay.
And this can be done in less than 2 years.
Okay.
So just with this, you can reduce the time from Trivandrum to Ernakulam to about 2 hours, 15 minutes,
Okay.
Just with this. Okay. Now, then the second stage will come, where you will do the actual realignments.
Okay.
So as I have said, you will require up to about, 20% realignments and using tilting trains, strengthening of the track, you can raise speed to 120 to 130 kmph.
Okay.
See, basically, the problems of curves is mostly up to Thrissur from Trivandrum.
Yeah.
As you go northwards, curves are not so many. The track is
it is almost flat.
Yeah, the curves are not so many. Curves are less. There are some patches, where terrain is difficult, so you are having curves, but curves are less. So the most of the problem is from Trivandrum to Thrissur. Yeah, or maybe little ahead, maybe Tirur, up to Tirur, the problem is there. But beyond that, particularly beyond Calicut, curves are less. Calicut almost 15 kilometers is straight track.
Yeah.
One of the rare things. So the problem, if you really examine it, analyze it, the problem is not very serious. And I would say by spending 15,000 crores in about 3 years' time, you can raise speed to 120, 130 kmph for normal trains and 20% higher speed for the tilting trains. Right?
So is there anyone manufacturing tilting trains in India, or how?
I'll tell you. Tilting train is a proven technology, and I can think immediately of 3 major manufacturers. The Italians have been one of the leading. Italian ETR 450 you may have heard of. They have I mean, it is owned by the Fiat Group, the automotive Fiat. So they are, you can say they are innovators, I mean, who initiated all this. Then there is another system which was developed by Scandinavian countries, mostly Sweden, It is called X2000. Okay, that system is there in South China also, and it is there in USA from Washington to Boston.
Okay.
Then there is a Spanish system, it's called Talgo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, immediately I can think of three major manufacturers and who will very easily adapt and supply to you their trains,
Okay.
In fact, Talgo was in India. They were very keen. About 2 years back, they brought their train also. And they were saying that we can even give you trains on lease also. There's also another solution.
Okay. It's like taking the aeroplanes on wet lease and running it.
Right, exactly. They are ready to give you on lease also. I mean, say, for example, in Kerala, you may finally decide, no, Kerala needs a new line also. So after 10 years or 15 years, we'll go for a new line. Then you can end the lease and switch back to the normal trains also. So all these possibilities are there. So this second phase, I mean, so I said first phase would be little improvement, bring the tilting trains, spend about 7,500 crore. In less than 2 years, you will get improvement of about 2 hours, 15 minutes to Ernakulam from Trivandrum to Ernakulam in 2 hours, 15 minutes. So that's a great deal of improvement. And similarly, beyond also, you can work out how much will be the journey time reduction. Now, phase 2, as I just explained, is raising it to 120 to 130, realigning about 20% of the track. And that can be done in about, say, 4 years, you can say. And then finally, you can go for 160 to 200 kmph.
Okay.
That will require some more realignments, about 30% of the realignments, and it would cost about 25,000 crores. And with that, you will get journey time of about 3.5 hours from end to end, from Thiruvananthapuram to Kasaragod, which will be as good as the new line,
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one more advantage is that you will be, I mean, you will require land only for the realignments. Okay.
Yes.
And where you realign, you will be releasing the land also.
Yeah, already the existing land portion, which will be, which can be, I mean, can be
which
free.
will be released, which can be flattened and used for whatever purpose you want.
Yeah.
So there is net, there is very little requirement of additional land.
Okay. Okay.
And you will be going through the main stations, which are in the city center. So you will get very good ridership. All your trains will benefit, even all mail express trains, Garib Rath, and Sampark Kranti, Rajdhani, all trains will benefit, not just the new trains, not just the tilting trains, but all trains, even existing trains will benefit. So it is a win-win situation for everybody.
But sir, how much cost it will be for maintaining this system? Whether this also needs a kind of a maintenance cost, whether it will have a additional or extra maintenance cost.
You see, it will be say 20 to 30% higher cost of maintenance compared to the present. So that's not a big deal. Maintenance is not a big deal. I mean, there will be increase in maintenance cost, but it is not really very significant, 20%, 30% higher cost, because basically these trains are also superior trains, they have better suspension system. So they put less stress on the track, on the bridges. So it is not that they require a lot of maintenance. No, maybe 20%, 30% extra investment will be required. So you see, the benefit is, very less requirement of land, and you get benefits very quickly. Phase 1, phase 2, 3, within 2 years, 3 to 4 years, and within 5 years. And let me tell you this thing, considering all the difficulties of land acquisition and the difficult terrain in Kerala, a new line. Kerala needs a new line. I keep saying it. Kerala needs a line, but you can defer it by 10 years at least. Easily you can defer it 10 years by upgrading the existing line. Because, construction of new line will take about 8 to 10 years, not less than that. You see, you keep 2 years for planning, survey, and all those things, And actual construction would take minimum 6 and up to 8 years. So optimistically, your new line will take 10 years to build. So
but these
already
KRDCL people, they say it is only 5 years.
Come on, this is all ridiculous. You see, KRDCL, just don't believe what they say. You go by their track record, I mean, I am absolutely frank about it. And I don't see any reason why Railway Board is not withdrawing the end principle approval. You look at what KRDCL has done, Initially, they sent the proposal of an elevated corridor end to end. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Now that turned out to be useless. I mean, it is not practicable. Then, their proposal was for a broad gauge line.
Yes.
Okay. Then surreptitiously, without proper approval of the board, they changed it to standard gauge. So I was involved for about 4 months with this, because they engaged me to guide their team for preparing the first feasibility report.
Yes.
So I was able to give them a unanimous report of SISTRA called the Preliminary Feasibility Report, which examined all possible options, all possible factors which will affect this thing. And we said, you go for broad gauge. Okay. Then you will be able to use the existing stations also. Requirement of land will also reduce, and it will not be anymore a standalone line. It will be fully integrated with the existing system. So not just the new train, all your existing systems will benefit. And here you have to keep in mind, these lines are extremely costly. Okay, as I say, it won't cost less than 1 lakh crore, but they also have very high capacity. So you have to make capacity utilization to make it workable. Don't go by their figure numbers, that it will be profitable in 3 years. That is all nonsense. You just go by the basics that you are creating a system with enormous capacity. It has capacity to carry up to 150 to 200 trains in a direction. What will be the utilization of a standalone line, But if you integrate it, then immediately your 30 existing train will come on this line.
Yes.
Okay. And then you will introduce new trains also. So within 2 years, you will have 50 pairs of trains running on the line. And then gradually, step by step, it can go up to 100. My guess is 100 trains in about 5 years. But it has to be on broad gauge and integrated with the existing system. So, so then coming back to KRDCL, after I left, they should have, because preliminary feasibility report has its own importance. It has its own role. KRDCL, if SISTRA is recommending that you go for broad gauge and you don't have approval of Railway Board for standard gauge, then KRDCL should have sent the report to Railway Board for a decision about the gauge. Instead of doing that, MD KRDCL gives verbal instructions and forces SISTRA to adopt a standard gauge. Take the stations outside, plan for the big smart cities, all verbally without any written instructions. KRDCL did not give terms of reference. You are required to give written terms of reference to the consultant. Okay. Say you give, say it will be on, say clearly it will be on standard gauge. Then you say clearly the stations can be taken outside to the suburbs because we want to develop smart cities. They don't do any of this thing. They just, I'll say I don't know, there was connivance or SISTRA act under compulsion, but everything was done verbally, and no ground surveys, no ground studies, no traffic survey. And then they sent this report, feasibility report in May 2019 to Railway Board. And Railway Board is also, how careless, without taking a look at the report, that there are no ground surveys. It is totally unrealistic. You can't come up with any feasibility report. You can't come up with any alignment if you ignore the ground conditions. And if you use Google Earth for preparing alignment. So I will say again, look at the facts and don't believe anything what KRDCL says, I mean, it has to be taken with a lot of thought.
KRDCL and the sisters head in India saying that the preliminary feasibility report, which you have had so many errors and so many other issues. So what is your comment on that?
You see, they are all liars. Okay. They are telling white lies. Number one, it was not Alok Verma's report. It was Sistra's report. Okay. I was there only to guide them. Okay. All the domain experts were from Sistra.
Okay.
And this report was signed by all the team members. Okay. And it was submitted to KRDCL. After 1 week, KRDCL gave its comments also on the report. Yes. So they are all telling these lies, that Mr. Verma prepared some report and we rejected it internally. You see, it has all come out in the open. I have posted on Twitter also all the copies, under which the report was submitted, then copy of the letter of MD KRDCL containing comments. So it's all lies, It is outrageous lies, for which they should be taken up.
So you mean to say that the KRDCL and the government of Kerala is practicing a kind of a systematic disinformation?
I don't know what is the role of the government, but KRDCL is indulging in a sort of a fraud.
Fraud.
It is a fraud. It is a scam. There is no doubt about it. Because you see, you talk to any railway engineer, okay, who has dealt with railway alignments, you just cannot make any alignment ignoring the ground conditions, particularly in a state like Kerala where the terrain is so challenging. So it is a fraud which they are committing, and it is going to, if they succeed, then Kerala will be burdened with a back-breaking project, which will take 20 to 30 years to complete. You will find that the whole alignment has to be changed. You will go for fresh land acquisition. I don't know what government will decide then, whether the project will be shelved or they will just drag it on for 20 years, 30 years. I mean, this is going to be a disaster for Kerala. There should be no doubt about it.
So there is another.
And let me add you one more thing. One more thing I will add. They are saying, that we did ground studies afterwards. Okay, for preparing DPR. You see, DPR is nothing but compilation of the inception report, the preliminary feasibility report, and the final feasibility report, and some more additions, For example, you may like to do marking of the alignment on the ground. You may like to do some more additional investigation, additional environmental studies, and all those things, So basically, on the basis of that bogus feasibility report, you got the approval of Railway Board, right? You decided everything, the station location, gauge, and keeping the alignment 80% on the ground on high viaducts and cuttings. So what is the sense of doing ground surveys afterwards? They have simply manipulated the data, and now you see, I am told that the government, because opposition was also demanding, the government ordered KRDCL to release the DPR. Now, yesterday, MD KRDCL has given some statement that we will not release DPR. I know they will not release DPR because then all their dirty tricks will come out, They will not release it.
Okay.
But you don't have to wait for that, There is ample proof with the government to immediately withdraw. Railway Board should withdraw in principle approval and start afresh, How do you start? First, you have to take a decision about gauge. Okay. Now, this is for Railway Board to do. I mean, you will have to do a comparative study. If I make a line on a standard gauge, standalone, what will be the benefits? What will be the disadvantages? Then you have to consider a broad gauge line integrated with the existing system, see what are its benefits and demerits. And then you have to compare both the options, broad gauge versus standard gauge, and then take an informed decision, So Railway Board has to first decide upon the gauge. What will be the gauge of this line? And I don't see any reason why it should not be broad gauge. There is absolutely no reason. Technology is available within India, even without any any major import. You can upgrade the existing trains also, existing locomotive, existing LHB coaches to 200 kmph, because they have design their design potential is for 200 kmph. Both LHB coaches and the ABB locomotive.
Railways have taken already an in-principle decision to increase the speeds of the train to up to 200 kilometers in a phased manner all over the country.
Yes. That was back in 2009. When the then Railway Minister Mamata Banerjee, she presented this Vision 2020.
Yes.
And Vision 2020, the main plank of this long-term plan was to raise the speed on the existing lines to 160 to 200 km per hour. And then recently, Railway Board has also approved broad gauge for Pune-Nasik line, which will have a speed up to 250 kmph for normal trains. So all this nonsense, which they are printing, which they are telling the media in Kerala that broad gauge cannot take trains at 200 kmph is all another part of this scam, this fraud. There is absolutely no reason to say, any ground to say that broad gauge cannot carry. In fact, this survey was done for Bangalore to Chennai bullet train line by the Germans. The Germans, which is the Siemens group, they said we will provide you trains for broad gauge for 350 kmph. And you may not be knowing, many people may not be knowing this, that the original plan for Mumbai Ahmedabad was also for a broad gauge line.
Yes.
And who did that survey? Sistra.
Oh, the same Sistra are saying for the standard gauge.
Sistra recommended broad gauge for the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train line in 2009. And here, these people are saying that you can't run trains at 200 kmph on broad gauge. So what is this? Ridiculous,
And another thing I wanted to ask you is that, see, the supporters of KRDCL or the Silverline project saying that, this project is funded by international agencies, so they will take care of the quality norms and the standards and so many other things. So what is whether any international donor will give the money, if that is what they are saying, that what is the compulsion for them to give the money?
You see, the international banking institutions, who are ready to give you a loan, but they will give you loan only if you go for a standard gauge. Okay. This MD KRDCL has acknowledged recently, about 10 days back. So their first condition will be that you go for a standard gauge. Okay.
That is this Japanese agency.
Yeah, there are other agencies also. JICA is in the forefront because they negotiated with JICA of Japan. But there is World Bank will also come forward. ADB will come forward. Others will also come forward. But they will say they will agree to give you so-called soft loan, where you repay after 20 years, 15 years, But their conditions will be this. Number one will be that you go for standard gauge. Okay. Then they will put the condition that you will have to import so much of coaches, trains, and rails, sleepers, and other material. Okay. Now, the most dangerous thing will be that Indian Railway has no experience of railway lines on standard gauge. We have only metro lines. Metro lines is a totally different ball game. It is within the city on the meridian of the roads, whereas your main line railway will go through all kinds of terrain.
Yes.
So we don't have any technical knowledge, any experience. So they will practically take control of your project. The project will be in their hands. And you can be rest assured they will take decisions which will require more and more import.
Yes.
This is what has happened in dedicated freight corridor, okay, where even rails are being imported from Japan. And this is what is going to happen in Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train also. So it is absolutely undesirable to go for a standard gauge and then make the country suffer, with the standalone lines.
In other words, it is like the automobile companies always keeping making their money by selling the spare parts.
It is worse than, you can compare with that. I will say it is a new form of colonization.
Okay. New form.
It is a colonization of Indian Railway. Okay, you introduce a standard gauge, and then gradually, step by step, they will push the government through their various means to make all new lines. Like, they are starting with the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train. Now they are pushing government to go for all high-speed lines on standard gauge. Now they are pushing for K-rail also on standard gauge. And they will now, this disease will spread, they will go on encroaching.
Now you mean to say that left government, the government led by a communist party, is helping for a new form of colonization of Indian railways?
You see, I will tell you one thing, you see, the government is run by the politicians, okay? The politicians are not experts in technical matters, scientific matters, or even complex economic issues. It is for which there is railway board. Here, the responsibility rests on the shoulders of railway board, nobody else. Railway board must assert its authority and take decisions in the interest of the country. Because railway board can appreciate, if they say we don't understand all these things, how colonization of Indian railways will happen, then they are talking nonsense. Railway board is full of engineers, experts with 30 years, 35 years service in railways. How is it that they cannot appreciate how this colonization will take place? This is utter nonsense, you see, just think over it, what is the point in making standalone lines, scattered over the country, and you see the enormous cost of making standard gauge lines. This is,
so you mean to say that the K-rail project is part of a colonization of Indian railways?
It is part of a broader plan to push a standard gauge on India and take control of India. You see, because they don't like this, you see, today and for the last 50, 75 years since independence, India has set up its own manufacturing units. Okay, we have electric locomotive plants, diesel locomotive plants. We have three major plants to manufacture coaches. We have plants to manufacture signaling, OHE, the electrification, everything. We are self-sufficient in manufacturing of broad gauge systems. Our neighbors, Pakistan and Bangladesh, are also on broad gauge, same gauge, Nepal will also have the same gauge. So you can say 25% of the world's population is being catered by broad gauge. So why should we abandon broad gauge? Why should we allow these foreign interests to impose standard gauge on India? It does not make any sense at all. This is why I have been saying again and again, you see, I can discuss it maybe in another program separately, how they justified Mumbai-Ahmedabad line on standard gauge. And this is all in a very secret, non-transparent manner. No study was done, which is better. You see, earlier recommendation of French consultant Sistra was for broad gauge. Then JICA came in with the idea of standard gauge. Did railway board do any comparative study? Was it an informed decision? No, it was not. I am sure about it. Let them come out with the basis of their decision to build Mumbai-Ahmedabad line on standard gauge. Just as in Kerala, you see why I am so getting involved in the debate in Kerala is because it has got national implications. Because I am seeing how they have encroached upon bullet train sphere, and now they are trying to enter into our main sphere, because future of India is in 160 to 250 kmph. That is the future of India, because this will, if you make a broad gauge line in Kerala fully integrated, then everybody benefits. Okay, the whole population benefits, whether it is rich or poor. But your standard gauge line will be only for daytime travel of 5% rich, 5% upper income group of Kerala. Why should public money be spent on such a costly project just for the interest of 5% of the population? So, I mean, you have been talking about left government in Kerala. Kerala has been dominated by left-wing political parties. So it does not make any sense, to be spending so much of public money on a project which will benefit just 5% of the people, whereas the rest of the population will continue to suffer from poor transportation within Kerala. So it's not logical at all. So I think what politicians have to, Railway board has to take the first step, and media also has a role, so that politicians also take notice that what are the implications of a standalone line on standard gauge, not just the immediate and short term, but the long term. So, they have to be, the political leadership has to be made aware of this thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time with us. And we hope we will have further opportunities to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.